Hello everyone, this is Maurizio, editor of Power Electronics News and eWeb. Today I have the pleasure to have here in this interview Fabio Violante, the CEO of Arduino. Hi Fabio, how are you?
Hi Maurizio, how are you?
Good. So today I would like to talk with you about Arduino, because Arduino is an open source electronics platform based on easy to use hardware and software. Before that, please introduce yourself, please introduce your company.
Yes, my name is Fabio Violante. I am CEO of Arduino since July 2017. And of course, it's a big pleasure, a big honor, but also a big responsibility to lead a company like ours that among all the startups that claim to change the world is probably one of the few companies that really changed the world so far. So it's a big heritage for me. And since I started this journey at Arduino, I try to understand better our audiences. And one of the things that I made in the company that had a big impact is the fact that we specialize the company in 3 business units: one dedicated to educational product, one dedicated to makers, and the last one dedicated to some customers that we didn't know were so important for us. That is the pro segment. So we have a business unit for professional users.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, Arduino is an open source electronics platform that is based on easy to use hardware and software. I must say that I used Arduino for several projects in IoT and IoT industrial market. Over the years, Arduino has been the brain of a lot of projects, from everyday objects to complex scientific instruments. Today, Arduino is a worldwide community of makers, students, not only programmers, but also professionals, engineers. Arduino offers many boards for every target. So one of the latest is Portenta for industrial market. At its heart is the STMicroelectronics microcontroller. But among of them, so is there a board that you prefer?
It's a tough question, Maurizio, because thank you for the appreciation, of course, of our products over the course of the year. You mentioned Portenta is, of course, the latest product, and of course has an important role in my heart, because I was sort of pushing to deliver this family of product, because it's very important now to have enough CPU cycles for enabling IoT application, to enable AI applications, and that's a very important product. Honestly, making a preference is tough for me. I also love quite a bit the new Nano family, because we tried to compress as much as we could into very tiny products. And now we have Cortex-M4 for the Nano BLE, for example. We have the Nano 33 IoT that's also very interesting because it's multi-core. It's Cortex-M0 SAMD21 plus the ESP32 within the module that we use for Wi-Fi. But also, the traditional products, like we call them internally the hero products, like Uno and Mega especially, because those are very, very powerful and robust boards. They can survive any kind of conditions. So they are very interesting also for learning. When you make mistakes, when you make shorts, etc., they resist everything. So you can leave them underwater and they work. So it's a very tough question. But I think Portenta plays an important role for me, and I'm thinking quite a bit also because of the development that we're making on the software stack, by supporting also a real-time operating system behind Arduino. So that's an important product for me now.
So a development board has a hardware and software part, so both. What more does your community want? So shields for every need, but also ready-made libraries, because just to speed up, to increase, to stay in touch with the famous time to market for each prototype.
Absolutely, yes. So when it comes to my view on this is that the hardware is very important, but the software stack, especially the firmware and the surrounding libraries, but also the knowledge and the content is extremely important, because without the work that we have been doing and the community has been doing over the year related to firmware, we would not have Arduino, and it would never be so easy to develop as it is today. So for me, the software and firmware aspect is extremely crucial. And when it comes to shields and accessories, of course, we have a range of shields and accessories, but there is also a lot done by third parties, our partners, other companies, makers. So for us, it's more important to try to contribute continuously on the software side and also on the development tools side. The Arduino IDE is downloaded, has been downloaded last year 39 million times. So it's like a sort of consumer product, and it's a very important piece of the equation, because it's one of the reasons why people like Arduino, because of the simplicity of this tool. And what we have done there is also to try to bring also to the cloud the development experience, make a simple development experience. And now with the IoT cloud, we are trying to make it simple also for people to develop IoT applications as well.
So talking or chatting with your users, customers, community, which thing stuck in your mind most? Perhaps a particular requirement applied over the years, which later proved to be important.
So I love to talk a lot with customers, with users, and to listen a lot. And this is something that I'm sort of transferring to the entire company as an attitude, to listen more than talking about what they need, what they're doing, what are the projects. So it's always very complicated to say one thing, because we are exposed to millions of projects. You mentioned the website. So on our website, we have 40 million people visiting every year. So it's a tremendous source of information and questions coming from people. But having to select something that stuck into my mind, first of all, talking about the professional market, for example, one thing that we discovered talking to customers is the importance of helping companies and designers to retrofit existing equipment. Because, of course, if you have a plan for doing something, it's not easy to make a decision to modernize it in one shot. So having the ability through Arduino to use Arduino as a Swiss knife that can be used to retrofit something, adding intelligence, adding IoT capabilities, adding AI, or even expanding the life of a product. It's something that came in dialogues with customers. The other thing that I learned quite badly at the beginning, because it was sort of slapping into my face, was the issues that people had with the IDE. That now, fortunately, we are in a much better position, because we invested a lot of money in the IDE 2.0 that is right now in beta. But customers were asking, for example, the users were asking for a better editing capabilities, a more modern framework, the ability to have a command line interface tool, and finally, very important, also adding a debugger capability that was long awaited. So for me, these are two things that came from the community input that I took very seriously and translated into investments that of course, you cannot do overnight, because when you do a product for millions of people, you have to think carefully. But I'm very pleased of being able to provide also answers to people through the products that we develop, software, hardware, etc.
Good, thanks. So Arduino is the ideal vision of open source in terms of hardware and software, as you mentioned. We talked about Portenta. In a bigger vision, how can open source help the industry? So I can think in general vision about smart grid, open source network, for example, but not only. So the future will be a part of IoT and IoT open source in this case. What do you think?
So I think when it comes to open source, one thing that I would like to highlight is that there's a lot of talking about open source, but not all the people understand very well what open source means. In many cases, it is sort of synonymous with free. So people just misinterpret this concept. In the reality is that open source, to be successful, needs to be a sort of a give and take kind of approach where basically people also contribute back with innovation by fixing bugs, by providing suggestions, by providing their own code, etc. And on the software side, this thing worked is working quite well, while on the hardware design, sometimes it's more like the the take part is more frequent than the give part also, and this is something that is a little bit of a shame. So, of course, for us, open source is important. So we can foresee open source to be at the it's a milestone for any kind of future development for IoT, and so this is what we see for the future. So we think that given the complexity of the stuff that are coming right now with AI, with IoT application, the only way is to free up people by providing open source tool that they can extend, expand, learn, improve, also from the security point of view.
So now we are in a particular period, I guess, a particular historical period of COVID-19. So have you had any particular problems in terms of supply chain or anything else?
Yes, nice question. And I think that you are an expert and you're working in this sector since several years. So this year has been a crazy year. So everything has been orders of magnitude more complex than it was in the past, from PCB supply to components lead time, to shipping cost, to R&D iteration, because right now, for example, we are doing remote working. So doing remote working for software is much easier than doing remote working with hardware, because you have equipment, testing equipment, you have shipment, all the customer clogged with goods coming from everywhere. So it was a tough year, even though we have a fantastic team. So fortunately, the customer didn't see big issues, but the burden was on the shoulders of our colleague in the supply chain, the factories that work for us for the assembly, etc. But all in all, it was a very successful year, also 2020, and we are making all the effort possible to keep also 2021 a very successful year and provide continuous supply to our customers. Everything is more complex anyway, so very long lead time, especially recently with the shortage of components, caused also for us to increase the inventory and to try to continuously supply products.
So another topic that I would like to talk with you is the relationship between children and technology, that I guess is important for the future, but also now. So what is Arduino's perspective on fostering a passion for electronics from an early age?
So as you know, Arduino has always been a strong believer in STEM and STEAM activities. So for us, the young generation are fundamental for the future of our society. That's a fact. What we believe is a society made not only of technology spectator, as I call them, people that just buy their phones or their electronic equipment and are not curious about how it's made or how to make one on your own. So we think that if we instill into kids this type of curiosity by providing them the tools to improve, to extend, to make stuff, we fail. So the important thing for us is to have always next generation that are technology curious. For this reason, we have a business unit in Sweden. One of our business units is Arduino Education, that is completely dedicated to support curricular activity and extracurricular activities for teachers and schools. And we have a bunch of products that are dedicated to helping teachers, digital products that are companions to our physical products, with this idea of project-based learning.
Yeah, just a look into the future. What do you foresee for Arduino futures? So which is the field you mostly focus on, and challenges that you are facing?
I think there are two areas where we are now investing extensively, and you see on a daily basis progresses and announcements. So one is the Arduino Pro business unit, that is the division that we created to support the pro activity, because professional need a completely different type of attention from us. in terms of temperature range of components, in terms of longevity, in terms of all the aspect of support, etc. And this is an important priority area. And the other area where we see still an important opportunity is the simplification of the cloud for IoT and AI application, where we are trying to create a paradigm by working a lot on the user interaction aspect and on the interface design, etc., to make it simple for people that have little experience to cope with the security in the cloud, to cope with protocols, communication protocols, low power, because of course we talk a lot about microcontrollers, but microcontrollers were designed with this different set of application in mind at the very beginning. So making simple and robust the cloud is something that is important, and this comes also with a solid stack on the board that we develop, and that's the reason why, for example, we put a lot of emphasis on the availability of a real-time operating system. We're using embeddOS right now as the basis for the device stack for connected products, because we believe that if you have to do complex tasks, you really need some support from a solid foundation layer.
So we are in conclusion, just last one. You mentioned open source. Can open source in some ways help the next energy network with the goal of zero emission? Because the problem of energy is is a good topic now. I have had the pleasure to read the book of Bill Gates too. And I would like to ask you, what is your perspective on energy, and what should we do to reach this goal? Clean energy to save this planet, maybe.
Absolutely. I think that open source will play a very important role, and we hope that also Arduino will play an important role, because at the end of the day, we live in a world that has a limited number of resources. So we have to become better citizens. And there are many ways in which open source can support this, from making products that have a longer lifespan, that can be reinvented over time without generating as much waste as we are doing today, to also do a better management of the energy itself by providing simple way for people to consume less energy, to generate energy from renewable sources, etc. So and also through the connectivity, through the ability to connect those devices, also making more informed decision with self optimizing networks and things like that, distributed AI and things like that. So all those things can be enabled by the open source frameworks, both hardware and software. So I think our future needs to be connected with a goal of zero emission, and we are trying to do our best to do this and improve what we do also operationally internally.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Fabio. Thanks a lot for having you in this interview. It's been my pleasure to interview you. Thanks a lot, and stay tuned. Ciao, Fabio.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. Thank you. Bye.